Hana Kim sat on the cold metal floor of the detention cell, her back pressed against the wall. Around her, 20 other humans whispered in fear. Some cried softly. Others stared at nothing, their eyes empty. The cell smelled like sweat and despair. She closed her eyes and thought about home. Not Earth, but the small colony world where she had been working. She remembered the research station in the mountains, the wildlife she had been studying. Creatures with fur and claws. Predators that the early colonists had feared. She had spent 3 years earning their trust, learning their language of growls and body movements. That felt like another lifetime now. The Vorgath had come 6 months ago. Their ships had darkened the sky like a storm of metal and fire. The Empire, they called themselves. They conquered human colonies one by one, deciding which humans had value and which did not. Hana had heard the stories. Most humans were sent to labor camps. Some simply disappeared. The door to the cell opened with a harsh screech. A Vorgath officer stepped inside. He was tall, over 7 feet, with dark gray skin that looked like stone. His eyes were yellow and cold. 4 arms hung at his sides, each ending in clawed hands. When he spoke, his voice sounded like gravel scraping metal. The human called Hana Kim, he said. Hana stood slowly. Her legs felt weak, but she kept her face calm. Years of working with dangerous animals had taught her one thing above all else: never show fear. Fear made you pray. That is me, she said quietly. The Vorgath studied her with those yellow eyes. I am Commander Rask, you will come with me. 2 soldiers entered behind him. They grabbed Hana's arms, not gently, and pulled her from the cell. She heard someone cry out behind her, maybe saying goodbye or maybe just making noise because they were afraid. She did not look back. They walked through long corridors made of dark metal. Lights flickered overhead. Hana saw other cells as they passed, filled with more humans. Some reached toward her through the bars. Others turned away. Where are you taking me? Hana asked. Commander Rask did not turn around. To determine if you have worth. What does that mean? You will face a trial. All captives face trials. Most fail. Hana's heart beat faster, but she kept her breathing steady, in out, slow and calm. Just like when she had first approached the mountain cats on her colony world. Just like when she had sat with injured wolves. They entered a large room with glass walls. Other Vorgath officers stood watching through the glass. Below was a circular pit maybe 30 feet across. The floor was bare metal. There were no weapons, no shelter, nothing. An officer with a scar across his face looked at Hana and laughed. This one is small even for a human. She will break in minutes. Commander Rask raised one of his 4 hands. Officer Tev, prepare the arena. Bring the cubs. Tev nodded and pressed buttons on a control panel. Hana watched as metal doors opened on one side of the pit. What is this trial? Hana asked. Her voice stayed steady even though fear crawled up her spine. Rask turned to face her fully. The Vorgath measure worth by courage. We are predators. We respect only those who face predators without running. You will enter the arena. The Kresh cubs will be released. If you survive for 1 hour without begging for help, you may have value to the Empire. If you run or scream or beg, you have no value. And if I have no value? Rask's face showed nothing. Then you go to the labor camps. Most do not last long there. Hana looked down at the arena. Her mind raced. Cubs. He said cubs, not full-grown predators. That meant young ones, juveniles. Young predators were dangerous, yes, but they were also inexperienced. They were children, really. She thought about the wolf pup she had raised after its mother was killed. Everyone at the research station had said she was crazy. Wolves were predators. Predators could not be trusted. But the pup had been scared and alone, and Hana had seen past the teeth and claws to the frightened child underneath. I am ready, she said. Officer Tev laughed again. Brave words now. We will see. 2 soldiers pushed Hana toward a door. It opened and stairs led down into the arena. She walked down slowly, feeling the eyes of every Vorgath officer on her. The door closed behind her with a heavy sound that echoed off the walls. Hana stood in the center of the arena. The metal was cold under her feet. She wore only simple prisoner clothes, thin and offering no protection. Above her, the Vorgath watched and waited. Commander Rask's voice came from speakers in the walls. The trial begins now. The metal doors on the far side of the arena opened wider. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Hana heard sounds. Clicking claws on metal. Low hissing. Heavy breathing. 3 creatures emerged from the darkness. They were like nothing on Earth, but Hana recognized them as predators immediately. They moved on 4 legs, low to the ground like lizards but with thick muscle under scaled skin. Each was about the size of a large dog, maybe 60 pounds. Their heads were wide with powerful jaws. Rows of sharp teeth showed when they hissed. Their scales were dark green with patterns that glowed faintly blue along their spines. Kresh cubs. These were the predators the Vorgath used to test courage. The cubs spread out, circling her. Their eyes were bright orange, watching every movement she made. One snapped its jaws, testing. Another growled low in its throat. Above, Officer Tev spoke. I give her 3 minutes before she begs us to open the doors. Hana did not hear him. She was focused completely on the cubs. She watched how they moved, how they tilted their heads, how their bodies tensed and relaxed. Years of studying predators had taught her to read body language better than words. These cubs were scared. Oh, they were dangerous, certainly. Those teeth could tear flesh easily. Those claws could cut deep. But underneath the aggressive display, Hana saw fear. She saw confusion. These were young predators taken from their mother, thrown into a strange place surrounded by unfamiliar smells and sounds. They were not hunting. They were defending themselves. Slowly, very slowly, Hana lowered herself to the ground. She sat cross-legged on the cold metal and made herself smaller. The cubs stopped circling and watched her, confused by this behavior. Hana looked down, not at them directly. Direct eye contact was a challenge, a threat. She kept her breathing slow and steady. Then she began to hum very softly. It was a low rhythmic sound, the same kind of sound she had used with frightened animals before. The cubs tilted their heads, listening. One took a step closer. Hana did not move. She kept humming, kept her eyes down, kept her body relaxed. Above, the Vorgath officers were silent now. This was not what they expected. The closest cub came within 5 feet. It sniffed the air. Its body was still tense, ready to attack or run. But curiosity was winning over fear. It took another step. Hana could smell it now, a sharp scent like copper and earth. She could hear its breathing, quick and nervous. The cub touched her knee with its nose. Hana stayed perfectly still. Her heart pounded in her chest, but her breathing remained slow. The cub sniffed her leg, her hand, her shoulder. Its scales felt rough and warm. Then, slowly, the cub sat down beside her. The other 2 watched from across the arena. They hissed and clicked, uncertain. But their sibling was safe with this strange creature, so maybe they could be safe too. Minutes passed. Hana continued humming softly. The first cub leaned against her side, and she felt how thin it was under the scales. These cubs were not being fed enough. They were stressed and frightened, just like she was. The second cub approached, then the third. By the time 30 minutes had passed, all 3 Kresh cubs were curled around Hana, seeking warmth and comfort from the only calm presence in their frightening world. Above, Commander Rask stared down at the arena in complete silence. In 20 years of conducting trials, he had never seen anything like this. Officer Tev's voice was barely a whisper. What is she doing? Rask did not answer. He could not answer. According to everything the Vorgath understood about predators, about prey, about strength and weakness, what he was seeing was impossible. But there it was, happening right before his eyes. The human had not run. She had not fought. She had done something that no Vorgath had ever thought to try. She had made the predators feel safe. An hour passed, then 2. The cubs slept against Hana, their breathing slow and steady. She stayed still, afraid that any sudden movement would break whatever trust she had built with them. Her legs went numb from sitting in one position. Her back ached, but she endured it. Through the glass walls above, more Vorgath officers arrived. Word had spread through the facility that something strange was happening in the trial arena. They crowded around the observation windows, staring down at the human sitting peacefully with 3 predator cubs curled around her like pets. Commander Rask had not moved from his position. His forearms were crossed over his chest. His yellow eyes never left the scene below. Beside him, Officer Teb shifted his weight from foot to foot, uncomfortable with what he was witnessing. Commander, Teb said quietly, what do we do? The trial time has passed. She has survived. But this is not normal. Rask's jaw tightened. No, it is not. Another officer spoke up. She must have some kind of chemical ability. Maybe humans produce a scent that calms predators. We should study her blood. Or maybe she is using some kind of mental power, said another. Some species can project thoughts. Rask shook his head slowly. Humans have no such abilities. Our scientists have studied them thoroughly. They are ordinary prey creatures with no special defenses. He paused, and yet, below in the arena, one of the cubs stirred. It lifted its head and looked at Hana. She smiled at it gently and whispered something too soft for the microphones to catch. The cub made a soft chirping sound and settled back down against her leg. "I need to go down there," Rask said suddenly. Tev's eyes widened. "Commander, that is against protocol. We never enter during a trial. The trial is over. She has survived 3 hours. I need to understand what is happening." Rask moved toward the door before anyone could protest. He descended the stairs into the arena, each step heavy and deliberate. The metal door opened with a loud clang. All 3 cubs raised their heads. They saw the Vorgath commander and immediately their bodies went tense. One hissed, showing its teeth. Another scrambled to its feet, positioning itself between Hana and the approaching threat. Hana raised one hand slowly. "It is okay," she said softly to the cubs. "He will not hurt you." But the cubs did not relax. They had learned to fear the Vorgath, to associate them with pain and hunger and cold metal cages. When Rask took another step forward, the largest cub growled deep in its throat. Rask stopped. He was a warrior trained in combat, and these were only cubs. He could kill all 3 easily if he wanted to. But something about the way they protected the human made him pause. "Tell them to stand down," he ordered. Hana looked up at him. Even sitting on the ground, exhausted and surrounded by predators, her eyes were calm and steady. "They are not mine to command. They are frightened. They are predators. Kresh do not feel fear. Everything feels fear, Commander. These cubs are babies taken from their mother too early. Look at them." Really look, Rask did look. He saw the cubs with new eyes now. He noticed how their ribs showed through their scales. He saw the dull color of their skin, which should have been bright and vibrant at this age. He noticed the way they trembled slightly. And he had always thought that was aggression, but now he wondered if it was something else. "They are warriors in training," he said, but his voice sounded uncertain even to himself. "They are children," Hana corrected gently. "Starving, scared children who do not understand why they have been hurt. We do not hurt them. We train them. When was the last time they were fed properly? When did they last feel safe enough to sleep deeply? When did anyone touch them with gentleness instead of force?" Rask had no answer. These questions had never occurred to him before. Kresh were predators. Predators were strong. Strength came from hardship. That was the Vorgath way. That was the way of the entire empire. Hana slowly moved her hand to touch the nearest cub. Her fingers traced gently along its spine, finding the bumps where scales met muscle. The cub's eyes closed and it made a soft sound, almost like a purr. "This one has an injury here," Hana said. "Something hit it hard enough to crack the scales. And this one," she gestured to the second cub, "has an infection in its front paw. Can you see how it favors the left side when it walks?" Rask looked closer and saw that she was right. How had he never noticed these things before? "And the third one is the most frightened," Hana continued. "It watches everything, always alert, never relaxing. That is not the behavior of a confident predator. That is the behavior of an animal that expects pain at any moment." The commander felt something strange in his chest. It was uncomfortable, like a stone lodged where it did not belong. Was it possible that the Empire had been wrong about how to raise Kresh? Was it possible that strength came from something other than hardship? "You have a way with them," he admitted slowly. "I understand them," Hana said. "On my world, I worked with predators. Wolves, mountain cats, bears. All dangerous, all capable of killing. But I learned that predators are not mindless killing machines. They are intelligent creatures with feelings and fears and needs." "The Vorgath are predators," Rask said. "We built an empire on strength." "There are different kinds of strength, Commander." Before he could respond, the door at the top of the stairs opened again. More footsteps descended, heavy ones. Rask turned and immediately straightened his posture. High Commander Vex entered the arena. Vex was larger than any Vorgath Hana had seen before. His skin was almost black, marked with scars from countless battles. His eyes were not yellow, but deep orange like fire. When he looked at Hana, she felt the weight of his gaze like a physical thing. "Explain this, Commander Rask," Vex said. His voice was deep and cold. Rask gestured toward Hana and the cubs. "The human survived the trial. More than survived. She has done something unprecedented." Vex walked closer. The cubs immediately pressed against Hana. their bodies tense with fear. The largest one growled, but it was a frightened sound, not an aggressive one. "The cubs are defective," Vex said flatly. They were supposed to test her courage by attacking. Instead, they lie at her feet like tame animals. These cubs have failed their purpose. Hana felt ice run through her veins. She understood what he meant. Failed, defective. These words had only one outcome in the Empire. "They have not failed anything," she said. Her voice was stronger now. "They are healthy cubs who need proper care." Vex looked at her as if noticing her for the first time. "You speak out of turn, human. You have no authority here. I have the authority of knowledge. I know these creatures better than you do." Several Vorgath officers watching from above gasped. No one spoke to High Commander Vex this way. Tev covered his face with one of his hands, certain they were about to witness an execution. But Vex did not attack. Instead, he studied Hana with those burning orange eyes. "You claim to know Kresh better than the Vorgath who have bred them for 10 generations. I know predators. I know fear and trust and how to build bonds that last. Your cubs are not defective. They are traumatized. Trauma makes warriors strong." "No," Hana said firmly. "Trauma makes warriors unpredictable and dangerous to everyone, including their own handlers. Trust and proper training make warriors strong." Vex was silent for a long moment. Above, every Vorgath in the observation room held their breath. Then Vex did something unexpected. He laughed. It was a harsh sound, like stones grinding together, but it was unmistakably laughter. "You have courage, human. Foolish courage, but courage nonetheless." He looked at Commander Rask. "She has passed the trial. More than passed. I want to see what else she is capable of." Rask nodded. "What are your orders, High Commander?" "Give her the cubs. Let her prove her claims. If she can train them better than our methods, then perhaps humans have some value beyond labor after all." He turned back to Hana. "But if you fail, human, if these cubs become weak and useless under your care, then you and they will be disposed of." "Understood?" Hana lifted her chin. "Understood." Vex left the arena without another word. When he was gone, Rask let out a breath he had not realized he was holding. "You are either very brave or very stupid," he told Hana. "Maybe both," she said. "But these cubs deserve a chance." "A real chance. You will have your chance. But I will be watching closely. Then watch and learn." "Commander." For the first time in his long military career, Commander Rask wondered if perhaps there were things about strength and predators and survival that he did not fully understand. The human sitting on the cold metal floor, surrounded by predator cubs who treated her like family, suggested that the Empire might have much to learn. They gave Hana a room. It was small and still had bars on the windows, but it was not a cell. More importantly, they allowed the 3 Kresh cubs to stay with her. The cubs followed her everywhere, refusing to be separated even for a moment. The first thing Hana did was demand to see a medical officer. The Vorgath looked confused by this request. Animals did not need doctors. They either survived or they did not. "I need someone who understands biology," Hana insisted to Commander Rask. "These cubs are injured and sick. If you want me to prove my methods work, I need proper supplies." Rask considered this. Finally, he sent for someone from the human prisoners. An older man arrived, thin and tired-looking, with gray hair and careful eyes. He wore the same simple prisoner clothes as Hana. "This is Dr. Yoon," Rask said. "He was a veterinarian on one of your colony worlds. He will assist you." Dr. Yoon looked at Hana, then at the 3 cubs sleeping in the corner of the room. His eyes widened. "Those are Kresh." "Yes," Hana said. "And they need help. Will you help me?" The old man was quiet for a moment. Then he nodded slowly. "I have not practiced medicine in 6 months. The Vorgath do not value such skills. But yes, I will help." Together, Hana and Dr. Yoon examined each cub carefully. The largest one, which Hana had started calling Duri in her mind, had several cracked scales along his spine. The middle one, smaller and quicker, had an infected wound on her front paw. Hana thought of her as Bora. The third, the most nervous one who startled at every sound, had signs of old injuries that had healed poorly. She named him Minho. "They have been treated badly," Dr. Yoon said quietly. "Malnourished, dehydrated, several infections. Whoever was supposed to care for them did not understand their basic needs." Hana felt anger rise in her chest, but she pushed it down. Anger would not help the cubs now. "Action would. Can you get us proper medicine? Food supplements? Clean water?" Dr. Yoon looked doubtful. The Vorgath do not waste resources on animals. I can ask, but I will get them, Commander Rask said from the doorway. Both humans turned to look at him in surprise. The commander stood with two of his forearms crossed, watching them work. High Commander Vex wants to see results, Rask continued. You cannot produce results if the cubs die from neglect. I will authorize the necessary supplies. Thank you, Hana said. Rask nodded once and left. But Hana noticed that he did not go far. Through the doorway she could see him standing in the corridor, watching. He was always watching now. Over the next week, Hana and Dr. Yoon worked to heal the cubs. They cleaned wounds and applied medicine. They prepared special food with the right nutrients. They made sure the cubs had clean water and a warm place to sleep. But physical healing was only part of the work. The cubs were also wounded in their minds and spirits. They flinched at loud noises. They growled at any Vorgath who came too close. They had learned that the world was dangerous and painful. Hana worked to teach them something different. She moved slowly around them, always telegraphing her intentions. She spoke in a calm, quiet voice. When they did something good, like eating their food or letting Dr. Yoon check their wounds without biting, she praised them gently, slowly. Day by day, the cubs began to change. Duri, the largest, started to play. He would grab pieces of cloth and shake them, growling playfully instead of aggressively. Bora became curious about everything, sniffing every corner of the room and chirping with excitement when she discovered something new. Even Minho, the frightened one, began to relax. He still watched everything carefully, but his body was not always tense anymore. Commander Rask came every day. At first, he stood in the doorway, observing silently. Then he started to ask questions. Why do you speak to them so much? They cannot understand your words. Hana was sitting on the floor, gently brushing Bora's scales with a soft cloth. The cub leaned into the touch, her eyes half closed in contentment. They may not understand the exact words, Hana explained, but they understand tone. They understand intention. When I speak calmly and kindly, they learn that I am safe, that this place is safe. Safety makes them weak. Safety makes them confident. A confident predator is far more dangerous than a frightened one. Fear makes you reactive. Confidence makes you strategic. Rask thought about this. He thought about the creche handlers in the Empire, who used electric prods and starvation to control their animals. The creche obeyed out of fear, but they also attacked handlers regularly. Injuries and deaths were common. It was considered part of the job, but these cubs had never tried to hurt Hana or Dr. Yoon. Not once. Show me, Rask said suddenly. Show you what? How you train them. I want to understand, Hana smiled. All right, watch. She picked up a small piece of meat from a bowl. Duri immediately perked up, his orange eyes focused on the food. Duri, sit, Hana said clearly. The cub tilted his head, confused. Hana gently pressed on his hindquarters, guiding him into a sitting position. The moment he sat, she gave him the meat and praised him warmly. Good boy, Duri, very good. They repeated this several times. By the 10th attempt, Duri sat on his own when she gave the command. His tail swished with pride when she praised him, you see? Hana said to Rask. He wants to please. All intelligent creatures want to succeed, want to be valued. You just have to show them how. This seems slow, Rask observed. Teaching takes time. But what is learned through patience lasts longer than what is learned through pain. More days passed. Word of Hana's work spread through the facility. Other Vorgath officers began to visit, curious about the human who had tamed the untamable. Some were skeptical. Others were intrigued. One young Vorgath soldier started appearing regularly. He was smaller than most, with lighter gray skin and bright yellow eyes that showed genuine curiosity. His name was Gorn. May I watch? He asked one day, speaking directly to Hana instead of through Commander Rask. Of course, Hana said. Gorn sat quietly in the corner and observed. He watched as Hana taught the cubs to come when called, to stay in one place, to walk calmly beside her without pulling. Simple things, but things that creche handlers in the Empire said were impossible. The next day, Gorn returned with a gift. He held out a piece of fresh meat, better quality than the usual rations. For the cubs, he said shyly. I traded my own meal for it. Hana's eyes softened. Thank you, Gorn, that is very kind. They look happy, Gorn said quietly. I have worked with creche in the training pens. They never look happy there, always angry or scared. But these three, they are different. They are not different, Hana said. They are just treated differently. All creatures respond to how they are treated. Another human was brought to help. His name was Jiho Park, an engineer who had been captured when his colony fell. The Vorgath wanted him to build better enclosures for the cubs, places where they could exercise and play safely. Jiho was younger than Dr. Yoon, maybe 30 years old, with strong hands and a quick smile despite everything he had been through. I can build what you need, he told Hana. Just tell me what the cubs require. Together with Jiho, Hana designed spaces that were not cages but homes, places with different levels for climbing, rough surfaces for sharpening claws, pools of water for cooling off, places where the cubs could be cubs. Commander Rask approved every design. He seemed fascinated by the process, though he rarely spoke about it. One evening, after the cubs had fallen asleep in a pile of soft bedding that Jiho had made, Rask came to speak with Hana privately. I have been studying human history, he said without preamble. Hana looked up from the notes she was writing. Have you? The Empire has records of every species we encounter. I read about Earth, about how your ancestors survived. And what did you learn? Rask's forearms shifted, a sign of discomfort. You should have died out. You are weaker than most predators on your own world. Slower, smaller, no claws or venom or armor. By all logic, humans should have been prey. But we were not, Hana said softly. No. Because you did something no other species has done. You made predators into allies. You took wolves, creatures that should have hunted you, and you befriended them. Turned them into dogs, partners, family? Yes. You did the same with other species. Horses, cats, birds of prey. You formed bonds across the predator-prey divide. Rask looked at the sleeping cubs. The Empire believes that strength comes from domination. But perhaps that is not the only path to strength. Strength comes in many forms, Commander. The strength to show compassion is no less than the strength to fight. High Commander Vex will return soon, Rask said. He will want to see what you have accomplished. If he is not impressed, the order stands. You and the cubs will be terminated. Hana felt fear flutter in her stomach, but she kept her voice steady. Then we will impress him. I hope so, Rask said quietly. Because I find myself wanting you to succeed. He left before Hana could respond. She sat in the quiet room, listening to the soft breathing of 3 sleeping creche cubs, and wondered if maybe, just maybe, she was changing more than just the cubs. Maybe she was changing the minds of an entire empire. 3 weeks after Hana first sat with the cubs in the arena, High Commander Vex returned to the facility. Word spread quickly through the corridors. The humans' time was up. Now she would have to prove her claims or face the consequences. Commander Rask came to Hana's room early that morning. His face was unreadable, but she noticed tension in the way he held his shoulders. Today is the day, he said simply. High Commander Vex wants a demonstration. You will show him what the cubs have learned. Hana nodded. Her heart beat fast, but her hands were steady as she fed the cubs their breakfast. Duri, Bora, and Minho had grown in the past weeks. They were healthier now, their scales bright and their eyes alert. They moved with confidence instead of fear. What does he want to see? Hana asked. Everything. Obedience, discipline, proof that your methods produce results that our traditional training cannot. Dr. Yoon and Jiho were brought to the demonstration area. It was the same arena where Hana had first met the cubs, but Jiho had modified it. Now there were obstacles, platforms, and equipment that Hana had requested for training. The observation room above filled with Vorgath officers. Hana recognized many of them now. Officer Tev was there, the one who had bet she would not last 5 minutes. Gorn stood in the back, his young face worried. Other officers she did not know crowded around to watch, and in the center, larger and more commanding than anyone else, stood High Commander Vex. Bring the human and the cubs, Vex ordered. Hana walked into the arena with the 3 cubs following close behind her. They did not need leashes or cages. They stayed near her because they chose to, because they trusted her. Vex looked down from above, his orange eyes burning like hot coals. 3 weeks ago I gave you these defective animals and told you to prove your worth. Now I will judge if you have succeeded or failed. They are not defective, Hana said clearly. They never were. We shall see. Begin your demonstration. Hana took a deep breath. She had practiced this routine with the cubs every day. But this was different. This was life or death, not just for her, but for Duri, Bora, and Minho. Sit, she commanded. All three cubs immediately sat, their bodies alert but calm. Above, several Vorgath officers murmured in surprise. Getting one Kresh to obey was difficult. Getting three to obey in unison was unheard of. "Stay," Hana said, and walked away from them. The cubs remained sitting, though their eyes followed her movement. She walked 20 feet away, then 30, then all the way to the far side of the arena. The cubs did not move. "Come," she called. They ran to her immediately, not in a chaotic rush but in a controlled formation. When they reached her, they sat again without being told. Officer Tev spoke from above, his voice skeptical. "Basic obedience. Our handlers can force this with enough discipline." "Can they do this?" Hana asked. She pointed to an obstacle course that Jiho had built. Walls to climb, tunnels to navigate, platforms to jump between. "Duri, show them." The largest cub moved forward eagerly. He climbed the first wall using his claws for grip. At the top, he paused and looked back at Hana, waiting for her signal. She nodded, and he continued. Through the tunnel, up and over obstacles, moving with confidence and even joy in the challenge. When he completed the course, Hana praised him warmly and gave him a piece of meat. His tail swished with pride. "Bora, your turn." The smaller female was faster than Duri, but she followed the course perfectly, never rushing recklessly, always controlled. Minho, the cautious one, took his time but completed every obstacle carefully and correctly. "Impressive tricks," Vex said, though his tone suggested he was not yet convinced. "But Kresh are not pets. They are weapons. Show me that these cubs can still be warriors." Hana had expected this. She gestured to Jiho, who pressed a button. A door opened and a training dummy rolled into the arena. It was roughly the size and shape of a Vorgath, designed to withstand attacks from Kresh claws and teeth. "Attack," Hana commanded, pointing at the dummy. All three cubs launched forward as one. They moved together like a coordinated pack, each taking a different angle. Duri went for the dummy's throat. Bora struck at the legs. Minho circled and attacked from behind. In seconds, the dummy was torn apart. The ferocity of the attack made several Vorgath officers step back from the glass. These cubs were not weak. They were absolutely lethal. But the moment Hana called stop, they disengaged immediately and returned to her side, sitting calmly as if the violent display had never happened. "They can kill on command," Hana said, looking up at Vex. "But more importantly, they can stop on command. How many Kresh handlers have been injured?" Because the animals could not be called off once they started attacking. She had struck a nerve. Hana knew from conversations with Gorn that handler injuries were a constant problem. Kresh trained through fear and pain often turned on their handlers. Dozens died every year. But these cubs, trained through trust and patience, obeyed instantly. High Commander Vex descended into the arena. His footsteps were heavy on the stairs. When he entered, the cubs immediately moved to put themselves between Hana and the potential threat. Duri growled low in warning. "Call them off," Vex ordered. "They are protecting me because they view me as family," Hana said. "But yes, I can call them off." She touched Duri's head gently. "It is okay. He will not hurt us." The cubs relaxed slightly but remained alert. Vex walked closer. He stood directly in front of Hana, towering over her. "You have taught them obedience and coordination. But have you made them soft? Will they still fight when facing real danger, not practice dummies?" "They will fight to protect what they love," Hana said. "That makes them more dangerous than animals that fight only from fear." "Prove it." Vex moved faster than Hana expected. One of his forearms shot out toward her, not truly attacking but testing, threatening. It was a sudden motion meant to trigger a reaction. The cubs exploded into action. Duri slammed into Vex's legs, throwing the High Commander off balance. Bora leaped at his extended arm, teeth bared. Minho positioned himself directly in front of Hana, body low and ready to strike. Together they moved like one creature, defending their human with perfect coordination and absolute commitment. Vex could have hurt them. He was far larger and stronger, but he did not fight back. Instead, he stepped away and raised all forearms in a gesture of peace. The cubs did not pursue. They returned to Hana's side, still alert but not attacking needlessly. The entire observation room was silent. Finally, High Commander Vex spoke. His voice was thoughtful, not angry. "In my 400 years of life, I have never seen Kresh behave this way. They fought with purpose, with loyalty, with intelligence. Because they were trained with respect, Hana said. Vex looked at her for a long moment. Then he turned to address all the officers watching from above. I have seen enough. The human has proven her claims. Her methods produce results that exceed our traditional training in every measure. Relief flooded through Hana, but Vex was not finished speaking. Therefore, I am expanding this program. The human will train more Kresh using her methods. She will also teach our handlers her techniques. He looked back at Hana. And you will need more human assistance. Dr. Yoon and Engineer Park will be permanently assigned to this project. Request additional personnel as needed. Thank you, High Commander, Hana said. Do not thank me. This is not mercy. This is efficiency. If your methods can improve our Kresh program, then the Empire benefits. That is all that matters. He started to walk away, then paused. But human, understand this, you are still a prisoner. You have earned better conditions and important work, but you are not free. I understand. After Vex left, Commander Rask came down into the arena. He looked at Hana with something that might have been respect. You have done something remarkable, he said, quietly. I did what needed to be done. No. You did what no one else thought was possible. Rask glanced at the cubs, who were now playing with each other, wrestling gently in the way young predators do. You showed us that there are different paths to strength. Over the next days, more humans were brought to work with Hana. A woman named Soyeon who had studied animal behavior. A young man named Daehyun who had been a dog trainer on Earth. Others who had skills that the Empire had previously considered worthless. They were given better quarters, better food, and most importantly, purpose. They were no longer just prisoners waiting to die in labor camps. They were teachers showing the mighty Vorgath Empire something new. Gorn became Hana's most eager student. The young Vorgath wanted to learn everything about her methods. He watched carefully as she worked with new Kresh cubs, taking notes, asking questions. Why do you do this? Gorn asked one day. You are prisoners. You could teach us wrong methods, sabotage our Kresh program, but you teach us truly and well. Why? Hana thought about this carefully. Because the cubs deserve better care regardless of who owns them. And because... She paused. Because maybe if we show you that compassion works, that patience is strength, then perhaps the Empire might change. Perhaps you will treat other species, even humans, differently. Gorn was quiet for a moment. You are trying to change the Empire from within. I am trying to save lives. Kresh lives. Human lives. Maybe even Vorgath lives if your handlers stop getting injured. She smiled slightly. If that changes the Empire along the way, then that is good. The young soldier nodded slowly. 6 months passed. The Kresh training facility grew from one small building to an entire complex. Hana's methods spread throughout the program. Dozens of cubs were now being raised with patience instead of pain, with understanding instead of force. The results spoke for themselves. Handler injuries dropped by 80%. Kresh obedience improved dramatically. Cubs trained under Hana's methods matured into warriors that were more controlled, more intelligent, and more reliable than any the Empire had seen before. But success brought new challenges. One morning, Commander Rask came to Hana with news. His face was more serious than usual. An Imperial inspector is coming, he said. Inspector Thane. He oversees all military animal programs across the Empire. Is that bad? Hana asked, though she could tell from Rask's expression that it was. Inspector Thane is traditional. He believes the old methods made the Empire strong. He sees your program as a threat to Vorgath values. Rask's forearms shifted with tension. He has the authority to shut down this entire operation if he decides it is making our warriors weak. Hana felt cold fear in her stomach, but she pushed it down. Fear would not help. Preparation would. When does he arrive? 3 days. Then we have 3 days to prepare the best demonstration we can. Hana gathered her team. Dr. Yoon, Jiho, Soyeon, Daehyun, and a dozen other humans who had joined the program. They also included Gorn and several other young Vorgath who had embraced the new methods. We need to show Inspector Thane that our methods do not create weakness, Hana explained. We need to prove that compassion and strength can exist together. How do we prove that to someone who does not want to believe it? Soyeon asked. We show him the truth. We show him what our Kresh can do. For 3 days they worked without rest. They trained the cubs in complex exercises. They prepared demonstrations. They gathered data and reports showing decreased injuries and increased performance. Duri, Bora, and Minho were now fully grown. They were magnificent creatures, powerful and graceful, but they still followed Hana everywhere, still sought her approval, still loved her after all this time. They would be the centerpiece of the demonstration. Inspector Thane arrived exactly on schedule. He was older than High Commander Vex, his dark skin marked with scars from centuries of battle. His eyes were cold gray like stone. When he looked at Hana and the other humans, his expression showed nothing but contempt. "So these are the prey creatures who claim to teach predators," he said to Commander Rask. "Amusing. They have produced remarkable results," Rask said carefully. "The data shows I do not care about data. I care about strength, about maintaining Vorgath superiority." Thane turned to Hana. "You will demonstrate your methods. If I find them satisfactory, your program continues. If I find them weak, this facility will be shut down and all humans will return to labor camps." "I understand," Hana said. They assembled in the largest training arena. Inspector Thane sat in the observation room with High Commander Vex and dozens of other high-ranking Vorgath officers. Commander Rask stood beside Hana in the arena, along with Gorn and the human team members. Duri, Bora, and Minho entered the arena. They were impressive to see now, each nearly 6 feet long with powerful muscles under gleaming scales. Their bioluminescent markings glowed bright blue. "Begin," Thane ordered. Hana started with basic commands showing how the 3 Kresh responded instantly to voice commands. Sit, stay, come, heal. They performed perfectly, moving as one unit. "Any handler can teach obedience through punishment," Thane said dismissively. "Show me something meaningful." Hana gestured to Jiho, who activated a complex obstacle course. This was far more advanced than the one she had used months ago. Multiple levels, moving platforms, narrow passages that required careful coordination. Duri, Bora, Minho. Navigate. The 3 Kresh moved through the course like water flowing downhill. They climbed walls, jumped between platforms, crawled through tunnels, all while maintaining perfect coordination with each other. It was beautiful to watch, like a deadly dance. When they finished, they returned to Hana and sat, barely breathing hard. "Impressive physical training," Thane admitted, "but circus tricks do not make warriors. Can they fight?" "They can fight better than any Kresh you have seen," Hana said confidently. "Prove it." Multiple combat dummies were released into the arena. These were advanced models programmed to move and fight back. They were the same dummies used to test elite Vorgath soldiers. "Engage," Hana commanded. The 3 Kresh attacked with coordinated precision. Duri drew the dummies' attention with frontal assaults. Bora struck from the sides, using her speed to exploit openings. Minho circled behind, always finding the perfect moment to strike. They communicated with each other through chirps and body language, adjusting their strategy in real time. In less than 3 minutes, all 5 dummies were destroyed. "Stop," Hana called. The Kresh disengaged immediately and returned to her side, sitting calmly despite their elevated breathing. "Your Kresh are well trained," Thane said, "but I see a critical flaw in your methods." "What flaw?" Hana asked. "They obey you. A human, a prey creature. What happens when a Vorgath handler gives commands? Will they still obey, or have you made them loyal only to humans?" It was a clever trap. If the Kresh only obeyed humans, then the program was useless to the Empire. But Hana had anticipated this. "Commander Rask, would you please step forward?" Rask walked to the center of the arena. The 3 Kresh watched him but did not move from their sitting positions. "Commander Rask has been observing our training for months," Hana explained. "He has learned the methods and practiced with other Kresh. Duri, Bora, and Minho know his voice and respect his authority." She nodded to Rask. "Stand." Rask commanded in his gravelly voice. All 3 Kresh stood immediately. "Navigate the course." They moved through the obstacle course again, this time following Rask's commands instead of Hana's. They performed just as perfectly. "You see?" Hana said to Thane. "They do not obey because I am human. They obey because we have built trust. Any handler who learns these methods and treats them with respect will earn the same loyalty." "Words," Thane said coldly. "Let me test this loyalty myself." He descended into the arena. The moment he entered, the 3 Kresh tensed. They sensed his hostility, his contempt. Duri growled low in his throat. "Tell them to stand down," Thane ordered Hana. "It is okay," Hana said gently to the Kresh. "He will not hurt us." The creche relaxed slightly but remained alert. Thane walked closer. He studied the three creche with those cold gray eyes. Then, without warning, he moved toward Hana with aggressive speed. His forearms reached out as if to grab her. It was a test, a cruel one. He wanted to see what the creche would do when their human was threatened. The response was immediate and overwhelming. All three creche attacked Thane at once. But their attack was not mindless or out of control. They did not try to kill him. Instead, they used their bodies to push him back, to place themselves between him and Hana, to show that they would defend her with their lives if necessary. Thane stumbled backward, surprised by their coordinated defense. He raised all four arms. "Enough," he said. "Stop," Hana commanded. "Return." The creche immediately disengaged. They returned to Hana's side, bodies still tense but waiting for her next command. They had defended her, but they had not lost control. They had not continued attacking after being told to stop. Thane straightened his uniform and looked at Hana with new eyes. The contempt was still there, but now it was mixed with something else. Respect, perhaps, or at least recognition. "You have created something unprecedented," he said slowly. "Crash that fight with the ferocity of warriors but the discipline of elite soldiers. Crash that protect their handlers with loyalty instead of following orders through fear." "Yes," Hana said simply. Thane turned to address everyone in the observation room. "I have studied the Empire's creche programs for 300 years. Handler casualties are our greatest ongoing expense and weakness. Every year we lose good soldiers to creche that turn on them." He paused. "These humans have solved a problem we could not solve." High Commander Vex leaned forward. "What is your recommendation, Inspector?" "Expand the program. Not just for this facility, but across the entire Empire. Every creche training center should adopt these methods." He looked at Hana again. "And the humans who develop these techniques should be granted special status. They are too valuable as trainers to waste in labor camps." Hana felt hope rise in her chest, but she kept her expression neutral. "However," Thane continued, "I have one final test. I want to understand why these methods work. Human, you claim that your species has a unique ability to form bonds with predators. Explain how this is possible." Hana took a breath. This was her moment to tell the story of humanity, to explain what made her people special. "My species evolved as prey," she began. "We were not the fastest or strongest creatures on our world. We should have been eaten into extinction, but we survived because we learned to make allies." She gestured to the creche cubs. "Thousands of years ago, our ancestors encountered wolves. Wolves that could have killed us easily. But instead of fighting them or running from them, our ancestors offered food, shared their fires, and slowly,